The Kwid's blistering start in the Indian market in a way highlights the fact that a rugged SUV styling just works irrespective of the size. Now Mahindra thinks so too, and the result of their thought process is this, the KUV 100. The name stands for Cool Utility Vehicle 100, and it certainly does look cool. It has hints of the SsangYong Tivoli, especially when you look at it from the front. It also happens to be the prettiest angle on the KUV. The headlights will remind you of the EcoSport in a passing glance, but look at those funky details. The headlights get translucent extensions running across the length of the bonnet. These apparently are inspired from wraparound sunglasses, and they house the engine monitor and the side blinkers. Unlike its stablemates, the KUV doesn't get an imposing grille. The signature bucktooth is missing too. What grabs attention instead is the chunky front bumper. Majority of it is finished in matte black to give the face a more rugged appearance like an SUV, but I would have preferred more body color on it. The rugged cladding runs along the wheel arches, the skirts and the rear bumper too, but won't be available on the base trims. The side profile doesn't look very inspiring. The nose looks overtly long and large for the rest of the car. So much so, the KUV seems chopped out from a longer vehicle. The tiny wheels add to this effect. While they fill up the wheel wells properly, the squared wheel arches and their corresponding character lines add too much muscle. Ignore the side profile though, and the rear could impress you. The character line that flows over the rear wheel arch creates a funky looking ridge over the tail lights. The tail lights have a clear Q7 inspiration to them with its squared 3D detailing. Like the EcoSport, the KUV2 gets a narrow rear windshield, but the spare wheel goes inside the boot like a regular hatchback. Save for that side profile though, the KUV comes across as a very stylish compact SUV. If you thought the TUV was too utilitarian in its appeal, then the KUV could be cosmopolitan enough for you. A 243-litre boot space is better than most hatchbacks that it will rival. The KUV is a sub-4 meter vehicle and is comparable in length to the Kwid. Its SUV ambitions make it taller than most hatchbacks, but still not as tall as the classic tall boy, the Wagon R. But the KUV is wider than all its rivals, and that has a positive effect on the cabin space. Step in and you will be surprised at how roomy it is for a vehicle this small. Adding to the feel are the light shades used for the plastics and the upholstery. To make your buying experience more SUV than hatchback, Mahindra will offer you a choice between a conventional 5-seater or a Datsun Go-like 6-seater version. The quality of plastics surprisingly good for a car of this class and compared to most other Indian manufacturers. I think it's right up there with Maruti Suzuki or even Hyundai for that matter as far as the fit and finish is concerned. The quality of the plastics even inside the glove box are quite good. I think the only bit of plastics that feel a little flimsy if I may, are these doorknobs and the sunglass holder. But they are the scratchy type. The plastics are not the soft plastics, but like I said, they still feel quite good. They're very well put together. I'm particularly worried about this particular panel here. Over a period of time, it may be prone to scratches. But apart from that, I think Mahindra has done a very good job. It feels like a scaled down version of the XUV. Not necessarily in terms of the design or the layout, but at least in terms of the way the colors and the textures have been used. It also looks a tad drab despite displaying Mahindra's obsession with putting badges wherever possible. It houses the sleek audio unit, which comes with support for Mahindra's smartphone app that stores vehicle information and lets you control the music system. The Tata Zeekr system and app offer better sound and function in comparison. What attracts attention is the quirky horizontal placement for the AC controls. Speaking of quirky, you have some storage spaces too that are more bootlegger friendly and easy to access. If you want more cubby holes instead, you are better off with the 5-seater config than the 6-seater one. Now quirky is the keyword for this car. In fact, KUV should stand for K for quirky, utility vehicle. But jokes apart, I'm not really complaining. I like most of the things, most of the unusual bits inside the car. They seem to work. Like this otherwise unsafe rear seat. Now the backrest for that can convert into an armrest whenever you are cruising out on the highway or something. I won't really recommend it much for city use because it does tend to hamper my steering a bit. But out on the highway, when you're on the straights, you can relax your elbow nicely on this. Even the height is adjustable, so I think it's a nice feature to have. The front seats are quite flat and sufficiently wide even for me. The rear seats are good for 2 adults and a kid and have plenty of headroom and a decent legroom and knee room. The cushioning seems quite good too, so may not be a concern for long distance journeys. But more on that with a road test at a later stage. Now, like most of the cars in this segment, the KUV will be offered with 2 engine options. The petrol one comes in the form of a 1.2 litre motor, all aluminium engine, 3-cylinder engine. I drove something similar very recently and I complained a lot about it. And I don't have any complaints about this particular mill because the noise insulation is quite good. Not many vibrations in the pedals either. I think they've nailed the NVH as far as this class of engine and this class of car goes. The engine delivers about 83 PS of power and 115 Newton meters of torque. The torque is not only class leading but is also delivered at a slightly lower engine speed for better mid-range. We couldn't test its effects on this test track, but a decent roll-on acceleration means that this engine will be a nice urban runabout. The engine is also quick to rev, though not as rev-happy as the Brio's iVTEC motor. But compared to the K-series engines from Maruti, this one seems to deliver a better punch. We will validate that with test figures later. The diesel option comes in the form of a 1.2-litre turbocharged common rail 3-cylinder motor. It produces 78 PS of power and 190 Newton meters of torque. Now the Euler starts delivering all that torque from as low as 1750 RPM, which gives you a very good low end and a decent mid-range. So trotting around in city in 3rd or 4th gear is not a problem at all. Out on the highway, overtaking is also not a problem. 4th to 5th gear, you can easily pull all those overtakes. Both the mills are the first in line of a new family of engines that Mahindra likes to call M Falcon. In the KUV, these engines have been tuned for better urban drivability and small car rivaling fuel economy. That said, neither of these engines feels strained at any point and can happily cruise at triple-digit speeds as well without making any fuss. The diesel is what I would put my money on for the large amount of torque that it offers. Both the engines are mated to 5-speed manual transmissions and an AMT could be added at a later stage if the market demands it. The placement of the gear shifter might need a little getting used to if you're upgrading from a small car because the placement is quite high. It will remind you of cars like the i10 or the key cars from Japan or even small cargo vans. That's exactly how it feels. In fact, when my cameraman got inside the car, he said, "Sir, ये तो टेम्पो की तरह दिखता है, पुरानी टेम्पो में ऐसे आता था." So that is what the school of thought is about this, but it's very accessible, it's easy to use. Like I said, it just needs a little getting used to. The throws are quite short, but it feels very well slotted, sure slotted. It doesn't have any rubbery feel to it. I think I like this gear shifter. The KUV has a ground clearance of 170 mm, which isn't too generous over conventional hatchbacks, but the longer suspension travel and smaller overhangs ensure better capability to tackle bad roads. But this isn't an off-roader, nor does it have sufficient power to get you out of tricky situations. So don't think of this as a go-anywhere vehicle as its name would otherwise suggest. It is more cool-looking car than utility vehicle. The squishy suspension also offers a very good ride quality, while the monocoque construction of the chassis makes the car quite agile and nimble compared to something like a TUV and on par with most of the hatchbacks. I would have also liked better feedback from the steering wheel, and there is a bit of body roll that you would come to expect from a vehicle that sits tall. The effects of a lightweight construction and this tall body is immediately evident on the braking. When you're trying to brake hard from say triple-digit speeds all the way to a standstill, the car does tend to wave around a bit. The car does tend to change direction a bit depending on the number of people inside the car, depending on the weight inside the car. With just me driving right now, of course there's plenty of weight on one side. So when I go hard on the brakes, the car tends to just swerve to the left because the right seems to just tip down a bit. But I think with a full house, braking should improve. Even the suspension performance should improve with a full house. The KUV then is a nice spacious alternative to hatchbacks like the Brio, the Grand i10 and the WagonR, and is also better equipped to tackle the fabled Indian road conditions. Mahindra has also gone the extra mile and made anti-lock brakes standard across the range, and for the responsible buyer, airbags can be had on any variant as an option. So in a nutshell, the KUV leaves me impressed. Through the course of this video, you heard references to the Kwid and the EcoSport. Now, the KUV 100 will be positioned between these two vehicles, which means that it will carve out a segment for itself, which also means that it doesn't really have any competition from crossovers or SUVs. The only competition it has is the hatchbacks and maybe the crossover-themed hatchbacks. So is the KUV 100 the proverbial kitten among the pigeons? Well, we'll have to wait and watch. But at least as of now, it looks like it ticks all the right boxes.